Under Georgetown blue skies, Democratic frontrunner Howard Dean is introduced to hundreds of supporters. And on the issue of jobs, Dean takes every opportunity to jab the current incumbent.
George Bush and the Republicans since Richard Nixon in 1968 have made a career about winning in the South by dividing us by race. I say, if you need a job, it doesn't matter what color you are, it doesn't matter where you come from, everybody needs a job. This is not some crackpot socialist idea from some liberal Yankee state up in the north.
Not only are we going to New Hampshire, Tom Harkin, we're going to South Carolina and Oklahoma and Arizona and North Dakota and New Mexico. We're going to California and Texas and New York. And we're going to South Dakota and Oregon and Washington and Michigan. And then we're going to Washington, D.C. to take back the White House.
The Tea Party movement appears to be gaining momentum in Vermont.
The setting was the well of the Vermont House of Representatives, but this was not a legislative debate. Instead, the second annual convention of the Vermont Campaign for Liberty. Its members believe in limited government of the kind envisioned by the founders of the country. It's part of a national organization founded by Texas Representative Ron Paul, who railed against the Federal Reserve System and the big banks, especially after the financial collapse of September 2008. Its members say the key strategy is to educate themselves as well as the public.
We've gone astray relative to the functions of government. We've treated government as a cure-all, when in fact the government serves a very specific function as outlined by our state constitution and by the federal constitution. What we're asking people to do is help us return our government to its original core functions.
The people here say the Campaign for Liberty is not about Republicans versus Democrats. They're just as angry at many Republicans. Rather, they call it a matter of individual freedom versus big government. Grassroots organizing, the essence of the Tea Party movement.
Vermont was the first state to grant statewide legal recognition to same-sex couples 9 years ago, when then-Governor Howard Dean was sort of forced by the courts into signing a civil unions bill. Now, Vermont continues its pioneering ways, becoming the first state to make same-sex marriage legal, not because of a court ruling on the constitutionality of the issue, but because the state legislature moved proactively to make it a new law. Also, and this is an important detail, Vermont does not have residency requirements for marriage, which means that you do not have to be one of Vermont's 600,000 residents in order to get married there. So, for example, any same-sex couples in California who had their rights taken away by Proposition 8 in November, I hear Burlington is lovely this time of year.
You know, Robert Putnam, in his book Bowling Alone, which is now a classic in political science, ranks Vermont first among the 50 states on civility. There's a reason for that, you see. Town meeting face-to-face democracy inspires tolerance and forbearance. Eye-to-eye contact brings out the humanity in you, mainly because it creates empathy, which is the most important word in politics today.
We therefore resolve that it is our duty to our families, our environment, future generations, and our very way of life to do what our government has neglected to do, to act to close this nuclear reactor. We will initiate this process by non-violently blockading the entity corporate headquarters today and now.
The doors have shut in Washington. You cannot improve your own country through your government in Washington, D.C., because it is now a corporate government. The corporations have got their executives in high government positions, departments and agencies, from the Department of Defense, the Department of Interior, Food and Drug Administration, and so on. They've got 35,000 full-time lobbyists swarming over Congress, 450 from the drug industry alone, almost as many as members of Congress, and they've got 10,000 political action committees, all with strings attached, pumping money into these politicians' coffers. Well, where is the rest of us? Is there anything left for the American people to decide other than their personal lives? And so you're up against basically a steel door that's been closed for the citizens, but open for the corporate lobby.
We're seeing a lot of anger out there. And the truth is that people have a right to be angry. And what disturbs me very much is that you see many of these right-wing folks, they're not angry at the insurance companies that are ripping us off. They're not angry at the drug companies. What the Republicans have managed to do is to turn that anger against what? Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, the attempt to try to make sure that every person in this country has health care as a right. That's a pretty sad state of affairs, and I think we've got to get a handle on that.